She counted the money one
100,
last time
200.
and realized the
It's
truth.
not enough.
It was still not enough. But a mother's love doesn't stop where money ends. Sarah spread the money on the table one last time. She counted it slowly. Once. Twice. Her hand stopped shaking, but her heart didn't. It was still not enough. She stared at the bills, hoping the numbers would change. They didn't. Her chest tightened. All that pain. All that sacrifice. And it still wasn't enough. Sarah pressed her palms against the table and lowered her head. A tear dropped onto the money. Then another. In the next room, Emma slept quietly, holding her stuffed toy. She had no idea how close her future was to slipping away. Sarah looked at her daughter, and something inside her broke. She had sold her jewelry. Her memories. Her last piece of dignity. And yet, she was still failing. "What kind of mother am I?" she whispered. Her body slid down the chair until she sat on the floor. Her hands covered her face. This time, she didn't try to be strong. She cried silently, so her daughter wouldn't hear. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. Then Sarah wiped her tears and took a deep breath. She stood up slowly. She looked at the money again. It wasn't enough. But her love was. She walked into Emma's room and kissed her forehead. "I don't know how," she whispered. "But I will save you. Even if it breaks me." And at that moment, Sarah made a decision. One that would change everything. She stood there for a long time after that decision. Not moving. Not crying. Just breathing. Because sometimes, when a mother breaks completely, what remains is pure strength. Sarah picked up the hospital papers again. The numbers were written clearly. Too clearly. She folded the paper slowly, as if folding her fear inside it. Outside, the city moved on. Cars passed. People laughed. Life didn't stop for broken mothers. But Sarah did. She walked into the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red. Her face tired. Her hands empty. "This is not the end," she said quietly to her reflection. She remembered something her own mother once told her. "When you have nothing left to give, give courage." Sarah grabbed her coat. It was late. Cold. Unfair. She walked to the hospital anyway. At the reception desk, the nurse looked at her with tired eyes. "Ma'am, the payment." "I know," Sarah said softly. "I don't have it." The nurse sighed. "I'm sorry." Sarah nodded. She turned to leave, then stopped. "My daughter is in pain," she said. "She's 5. She still believes her mother can fix everything." The nurse looked at her again. This time, really looked. "Wait here," the nurse said. Minutes passed. Sarah's heart pounded. Then a doctor came out. "We can delay the surgery for 1 day," he said. "Maybe, just maybe, you'll find a way." 1 day. Just one. Sarah walked out of the hospital into the cold night. She sat on the steps and finally let herself cry. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just real. A woman sat beside her. Older. Quiet. "You look like someone who's fighting God," the woman said gently. Sarah smiled sadly. "I think I'm losing." The woman shook her head. "No. You're still standing." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small wooden box. Empty. "Someone gave this to me years ago," the woman said. "When I had nothing." Sarah stared at it. "What is it?" she asked. The woman placed it in Sarah's hands. "A reminder," she said. "That the world sometimes listens, after you break." And then she stood up and walked away. Sarah sat there holding the empty box. For the first time that day, she didn't feel alone. She stood up. She wiped her face. She walked back inside the hospital. Because even when money is gone, even when hope is thin, a mother never stops walking forward. Sarah held the empty box tightly as she walked down the hospital hallway. The lights were harsh. The floor was cold. But her steps were steady. She sat beside Emma's room and watched her chest rise and fall. Each breath sounded like a promise she had to keep. Sarah opened the box again. Nothing inside. And yet, it felt heavy. She remembered the woman's words. The world sometimes listens, after you break. Sarah stood up and walked to the hospital notice board. Flyers. Phone numbers. Small hopes pinned with tape. One paper caught her eye. Community Emergency Fund, ask even if you're ashamed. Sarah hesitated. Then she tore the number off. Her voice shook when she called. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She told the truth. I sold everything, she said. It still wasn't enough. My daughter needs surgery tomorrow. There was silence on the other end. Then a calm voice replied. Come in. Now. Sarah ran. Inside a small office, 3 strangers listened to her story. They didn't interrupt. They didn't judge. When she finished, her hands were empty again. Her voice too. One man leaned forward. Why didn't you give up? He asked. Sarah answered without thinking. Because she calls me Mom. The room went quiet. The woman beside him wiped her eyes. We can't cover everything, she said. But we can cover enough. Sarah felt her knees give way. Enough. Not extra. Not comfort. Enough to save a life. She walked back to the hospital before sunrise. The nurse looked at the papers, then at Sarah. You did it, she whispered. Sarah shook her head. No. We did. The surgery began. Hours passed. Sarah sat alone, the empty box on her lap. She didn't pray for miracles anymore. She prayed for strength. Finally, the doors opened. The doctor smiled. She's stable, he said. She's going to be okay. Sarah didn't scream. Didn't collapse. She just closed her eyes. And breathed. Later, when Emma woke up, she whispered. Mom, did you fix it? Sarah smiled, tears falling freely now. Yes, she said. I fixed it. Emma squeezed her hand weakly. I knew you would. Sarah placed the empty box on the windowsill. It had done its job. Money was still not enough. But courage was. And love was. Emma slept through the night. For the first time in weeks, the machines around her were quiet. No alarms. No rush. Just breathing. Sarah sat beside the bed, afraid to blink. As if the moment might disappear if she did. At dawn, a nurse came in with a soft smile. She's strong, she said. Just like her mother. Sarah looked at her hands. They were still empty. But they no longer felt weak. When Emma finally opened her eyes, she smiled slowly. Mom, can we go home now? Sarah laughed and cried at the same time. Soon, she whispered. Very soon. Days passed. Bills still came. Life didn't magically become easy. But something had changed. People started showing up. A neighbor with warm food. A teacher with books. A stranger who left an envelope at the door, no name, no note. Just help. Sarah never asked who sent them. She understood now. Help comes quietly, when pride steps aside. One evening, Emma noticed the small wooden box on the shelf. What's that, Mom? Sarah picked it up. It's a reminder, she said. That when things break, they can still hold hope. Emma nodded, serious. When I grow up, she said. I want to help moms like you. Sarah hugged her tightly. You already are, she replied. Years later, Emma would remember this time not as fear, but as the moment she learned what strength looks like. Not loud. Not rich. Not perfect. Just a mother who refused to stop walking forward. Even when money wasn't enough. Even when she was breaking inside. And somewhere, another mother would sit at another table, counting money that still wasn't enough. She would feel alone. But this story would reach her. And it would whisper. Sarah never told anyone how close she came to giving up that night. She kept that part locked inside her chest. Right next to the fear. Right next to the love. Emma recovered slowly. Step by step. Breath by breath. Each morning, Sarah helped her walk a little farther down the hallway. Each night, she sat awake, listening to her daughter breathe, afraid silence might return. One afternoon, a social worker sat with Sarah. You've been through a lot, she said gently. There are programs. Support. You don't have to do this alone. Sarah nodded. She was finally ready to hear that. When they went home, the house felt smaller. Quieter. But warmer. Sarah returned to work. Not because she was strong. But because stopping wasn't an option. Some days, she smiled. Some days, she cried in the bathroom at lunch. And some days, she opened the empty box. Not to remember pain, but to remember she survived it. Emma grew stronger. She laughed louder. She asked bigger questions. One night, while coloring at the table, Emma looked up and asked, Mom, were you scared when I was sick? Sarah paused. Yes, she said honestly. I was terrified. Emma nodded thoughtfully. Me too, she said. But you stayed. Sarah reached across the table and held her hand. That was the moment Sarah understood something important. Her daughter didn't need a perfect mother. She needed a present one. Years passed. Life stayed ordinary. Bills. Work. School. But ordinary felt like a gift. Every now and then, Sarah would notice a mother at a bus stop. Or in a hospital hallway. With the same tired eyes. And without saying much, Sarah would sit beside her. Sometimes she shared her story. Sometimes she just listened. Sometimes, she passed along the empty box. And each time, she watched something shift. Just a little. Shoulders relaxing. Breathing slowing. Hope finding a place to land. Because once you survive a moment where money isn't enough. Where strength feels gone. Where love is the only thing left. You learn something. You learn that breaking doesn't mean ending. It means opening. And Sarah kept walking forward. Carrying nothing but that truth. Sarah kept moving. Not because life became easy. But because stopping reminded her of that night, and she never wanted to return there. Emma started school again. The first day, Sarah walked her to the gate and watched as her daughter turned back one last time. Mom? Emma said. Yes, baby? If I get scared, you'll still be there, right? Sarah knelt down and held her face. Always, she said. Even when you don't see me. Emma smiled and ran inside. Sarah stayed outside longer than she needed to. Some fears don't leave quickly. Weeks later, Sarah received a call from the hospital. Another mother. Another child. Another bill that wasn't enough. They asked Sarah to talk to her. Sarah sat beside the woman in the waiting area. She didn't offer advice. Didn't say everything will be okay. She said something better. I didn't think I would survive this either. The woman looked at her with swollen eyes. But you did, she whispered. Sarah nodded. One step at a time. That night, Sarah placed the empty box back on the shelf. Emma noticed. Why do you keep it empty? She asked. Sarah smiled. Because it reminds me that when there was nothing left, I still stood up. Emma thought for a moment. Then she placed a small paper heart inside the box. For courage, she said. Sarah froze. She didn't remove it. Days turned into months. Months into years. Emma grew taller. Sarah grew calmer. The fear that once lived in Sarah's chest slowly softened into memory. But sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet, Sarah would still count. Not money. Breaths. Moments. Heartbeats. Because she learned something the world doesn't teach you. When money is not enough. When strength feels gone. When hope is thin. Love doesn't shout. It stays. And Sarah stayed. Still walking. Still choosing. Still holding the hand that once fit inside her palm. And somewhere, another mother was just beginning her own night. Counting money that still wasn't enough. Sarah didn't know it then, but that night changed the way she saw the world forever. Before, she believed strength was loud. That saving someone meant having answers. Money. Power. Control. Now she knew better. Strength was quiet. It showed up even when fear sat in your chest. It stayed when there was no applause. One evening, as Sarah and Emma walked home, Emma stopped suddenly. Mom, she said, pointing to a woman sitting on the sidewalk, head in her hands. Sarah followed her gaze. The woman looked exactly how Sarah once felt. Broken. Ashamed. Alone. Emma squeezed her mother's hand. Can we help her? Sarah's throat tightened. They sat beside the woman. No questions at first. Just presence. After a while, the woman spoke. My son is sick, she whispered. I sold everything. It's still not enough. Sarah felt the words hit her like a mirror. She reached into her bag and pulled out the small wooden box. Empty, except for the paper heart Emma had placed inside. She handed it to the woman. I don't have money, Sarah said gently. But I have this. And I have time. The woman looked confused. What is it? Sarah smiled softly. It's proof that someone else survived this moment. The woman held the box like it might fall apart. Tears slid down her face. I don't want to break, she said. Sarah shook her head. You already did, she replied. And you're still here. Emma wrapped her small arms around the woman's leg. You're brave, she said. The woman laughed through tears. That night, as Sarah tucked Emma into bed, Emma asked, Mom, why do bad things happen to good people? Sarah thought for a long moment. Maybe, she said slowly. So good people can find each other. Emma smiled sleepily. Then I'm glad you didn't stop. Sarah kissed her forehead. So am I. Later, alone in the quiet house, Sarah opened the box once more. The paper heart was still inside. She added a second note, folded small. I broke. I kept going anyway. She closed the box. Somewhere, another mother would open it one day. Her hands shaking. Her heart heavy. And when she did, Sarah never added another word after that. She didn't need to. Years later, the small wooden box sat on a shelf in Emma's home. Emma was grown now. A mother herself. One night, her child asked, Mom, what's in that box? Emma opened it. Inside were two things. A small paper heart. And a folded note. I broke. I kept going anyway. Emma closed the box gently and held her child close. Sometimes, she said softly, love is the only thing that survives. And that's enough. Outside, the world was loud. Bills. Fear. Uncertainty. But inside that room, there was peace. Because a long time ago, when money was not enough, A mother chose to keep walking. And because of that choice, this story finally rests.